So tonight we are going to get started. I'm Rochelle Wilhite, the designated broker of Best Choice Realty. And we are going to have a guest today. She is actually with Best Choice Realty on our referral network. And it's a very good friend of mine, Kathryn Lenhardt, who's going to be talking about home staging. So before we get started, we're just getting her microphone adjusted. I just wanted to welcome all of you to our webinar and let you know that we are very busy in getting listings done right now. There are a lot of opportunities out there, and when everybody is going crazy and not having a lot to, worried about the contracts or how they fill out the contracts, luckily for us at Best Choice Realty, we have had no problem with the contract adoption. Our contract adoption to our new listing agreement is close to 100%. I would say about 98% of the brokers that work for our company are using our new listing contract, which does allow for that, that staging piece to kind of make a play. So if you are looking to incorporate a good, solid vendor into your listing process, you may want to consider involving a stager and a licensed stager that's also licensed in real estate so that they can help you with the process. It makes it a lot easier. So we are very excited to have Kathryn. Shannon, are we okay to move forward?
Yeah, Kathryn, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh,
perfect.
Goodness. Hi.
Good evening. We're happy to have Kathryn. So she's got a beautiful presentation, but I want to let her take the reins, and then what we'll do is we'll open it up for Q&A if we could at the very end. So we'll keep the lines muted, Kathryn, but yeah, just go ahead and I roll through your presentation.
Okay.
And if there's questions throughout, you can certainly chat like you've done in the past,
Okay.
and we will open it up for Q&A. So take it away, Kathryn. We're excited to have you.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I am Kathryn Lenhardt. I own First Impression Staging and Design. I've been a licensed real estate agent for a little over 20 years. And I've owned a staging company for almost 8 years now. So my goal here today is to talk a little bit about staging and answer any questions that you guys might have. And I'll be curious when we're finished to hear who has used a stager, who hasn't used a stager, and like I said, any questions that you may possibly have. So we can just go ahead and go on to the next slide, and we'll just kind of go from there. So we're going to talk about what exactly is home staging. We also offer something called a pre-listing consultation that I want to chat about. And then I also want to talk about the difference between different types of staging and just kind of clarify a little bit about that. So we can move on to the next one. There are, I think, a lot of misconceptions about home stagers and what it is that we do. And next slide, we'll talk a little bit about, we often have people that feel like maybe we're just a furniture rental company, which we definitely are not. We do a whole lot more than that. So let's move on to the next screen. And the one after that as well, please. Thank you so much. This just talks a little bit about what the difference is between a furniture rental company and a home staging company. And the reason this came up is I've had quite a few people reach out, agents recently, that will, send a text or an email and say, hey, I just need, I need a couple of bar stools and a living room sofa. That's really not what we do. What we do, and what I like to really help people understand, is that home staging is not about just putting some furniture in the house. And it's not about decorating the house and making it look pretty. And I often tell my sellers that we are here to market the home. So I have several goals when I'm staging a home. The first one, of course, is to make sure that the photos look amazing. That's how we're going to get people in the house. My second goal is to really wow them when they come in, give them a sense of this is what my life could look like if I live here, and this is how I could use this space. And then the equally important goal, in my opinion, is to elevate the brand of the agent that has referred us. I have a lot of agents that we stage every single listing for, and we do a consultation for every single one of their sellers. And it is part of their brand. So we can keep moving on. I'm going to kind of probably go off topic a little bit on these. We do sometimes have sellers and agents that feel like, oh gosh, this is a collaboration. We're going to interior design the home, and I want it to look like this. No, we're not. We stage for the buyer, and we make the choices that we make based on what is the best fit for the home, the architecture of the home, the colors of the home, and also who is the most likely buyer. So those are the things that we take into account. Oftentimes we have sellers that really want to be a little bit more involved in the process because, of course, they're very attached to their home, and they have an idea as to what it would look like. And so we talk to them and really let them know that this is going to look very different than it did when you were living here. And that's okay, because we want to appeal to as many buyers as possible. Again, we're marketing the home. Okay, let's go on. There's a whole list here of the difference between interior design and home staging, but suffice it to say, I have a dear friend in the industry, and she does this much better than I can, but she puts her hands up and she holds one hand up and she said, here's an interior designer. They cost you money. And she holds her other hand up the other direction and says, I'm a home stager. I make you money. And so really there's a huge, huge difference between the two. We are staging the home to market it to potential buyers. So let's keep going. Basically, home staging is visual merchandising. Again, it's marketing, it's not decorating, and it's a proven strategy. And it involves styling the home to appeal as many buyers as possible. And we do that by, like I said, getting them in the door, first of all. The photos look so great. Oh my gosh, we have to go see that house. Second of all, by helping to show them how they could use the house. Oh, I could do this with this space. It's very different than having a buyer walk into a vacant home and them not knowing, well, what do I do with that tiny little room or something like that? So we just want to make sure that we can help sell the fixed assets of the home. We accentuate the positives, and we try to downplay some of the negatives. We don't cover them up, but we can certainly take the focus off of them oftentimes. Okay, let's keep going. Pre-listing consultations. I think a lot of people don't even know that this is anything that is offered, and it is a huge, huge value. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is meeting with home sellers. An agent will hire me to come and meet with their seller, and we go through the house front to back, top to bottom. And when I say front to back, I mean the front yard, the gutters, everything on the outside of the house, everything on the inside of the house. And I make suggestions to them as to what they can do to help get the most money for their home. And we're not talking about gutting the kitchen. We're talking about fairly reasonably priced changes that will make a huge difference. And sometimes I have real estate agents who say, well, I can do that. Yes, you can. Absolutely. But the question is, do you want to spend your time doing that? And would you prefer to have somebody else be the bad guy to tell them, hey, let's see what we can do about this kitty smell and how we can deal with this. Oftentimes I am able to talk about the things that you guys don't want to talk about with your sellers. You want to be their advocate and their hero. And I'm there to say, let's address these things. This is how we can do it and help them to get more money for their house, basically. So I'm happy to answer questions about what that involves further. So a pre-listing consultation, obviously, the benefit is that it's going to maximize the return on investment. I often tell sellers when I'm meeting with them, I never make a suggestion just because I think it's going to look pretty. We talk about light fixtures and we talk about flooring, and we talk about paint colors, and I make all of those recommendations for them. If they need vendors, I make those recommendations. So what that does for you, the real estate agent, is it takes you out of that kind of difficult position that you could potentially be in. It frees up your time to go get more business. And it makes you look like the star because you've provided this service to your sellers. And now they know exactly what they need to do to get their house ready. So, okay, let's keep going. We have to talk about, if we're going to talk about home staging, we have to talk about what's really great home staging versus not so great home staging. The barrier to entry for this field is non-existent. Anybody can hang out their shingle and, go buy some stuff at Home Goods and call themselves a home stager. There's a huge difference, and you, I'm sure, see this every day in MLS photos, between a home that is really beautifully staged and a home that probably somebody just put a few things in and maybe hung some art that wasn't necessarily the right size or the right color and said that it was staged. What's important about that is that really great home staging will absolutely get better offers, make more money. No question about it. And we're going to show some photos that really talk about that. So these are some photos of a house in Newcastle that we staged. And granted, it's Newcastle, right? So it actually sold for $265,000 over asking in 6 days. And I know for a fact that while it was a beautiful home, it was a really gorgeous home, that would not have happened if it had been vacant. Okay. It's important to remember that staging is an investment. It's an investment in marketing. Oftentimes people will ask, well, who pays for it? I have some sellers that pay for every one of their listings to be staged. I have some sellers, some agents that are great at explaining to the seller what the benefit is to them so that they are willing to pay for it. Now in modern day life, everybody watches HGTV, and the truth is buyers, especially in our area, expect to see a home that is presented really, really well. So again, whether I'm talking to the agent or whether I'm talking to the seller, I remind them this is an investment in marketing the home. Okay. Oh, Shannon, I didn't ask you if we could do this. I hope this is okay.
Oh, of course. Go for it.
I appreciate it. So this is a house that Shannon had listed in Puyallup, and it was listed for $625. It was on the market for 44 days before it was removed, and we staged it. Shannon, were other things done to the home as well during that time?
It was a tenant occupied home before. And so we got it vacant. Had a handyman come through and kind of clean up some different things after the tenants had left.
Yes.
And I was able to turn the project over to Kathryn, and it was the perfect house to be staged. It needed to be staged. It was a big tall ceilings, Victorian styled house, and it's got all those quirky corners.
That's cool. It was such a cool house. We had so much fun staging this. Bottom line is the new list price was $650. It was on the market for 8 days and it sold for $665. So, that's just, I think, an amazing illustration about how well this works. And we have some before and after photos in here. I'm not sure if they're the next screen or, yeah, we do. Okay. So this is the dining room before and then the dining room after when we staged it. And then I think we've got a couple more, probably the office. Oh, the entry. Such a cool house. Okay, one more. The office. So this is the office before we staged it and after. And I think it's pretty clear what a huge difference that made. Okay. We've got some examples here, and this is a little bit challenging for me because we don't want to talk badly about others in our same profession. But the truth is that, in my opinion, poor staging is just a complete waste of money. I don't feel, and most others that I know that are professionals don't feel that there's any value in staging a home badly. It doesn't provide the same results. So we've got some illustrations of that as we go on a little bit. Some of the differences between what I call poor home staging versus great home staging, and it's pretty off. It's pretty self-explanatory, but oftentimes some of the wasted space is just sitting there, not being shown how it can be used. And every square foot is worth money. We need to show how it can be used. Oftentimes someone that's not doing very great staging is using outdated items that are worn out and look like they maybe came from a thrift store. The other thing that I see with staging that I feel doesn't do any service to the house is art that's too small, or a little rug in the corner with a chair, and they've called that staging. That doesn't do anything to sell the house. And it doesn't do anything to improve the photos, in my opinion. The other thing that we often see is that it's kind of this whole mishmash of, oh, well, you got a little bit of this here and a little bit of that there. Great staging is cohesive, and it walks the buyer through the house from room to room, and it gives them a vision, like I said, as to what it would look like if they live there. And I sort of jokingly tell my sellers, we're kind of selling a dream here, because we know that they're going to move in and they're going to have their dog and their kids or whatever, and their life is never going to look like this again. But that moment, they can envision it, and it evokes that emotion. So one of the things or a bunch of the things that I think that really good home staging does is it turns wasted space into usable space. It uses on-trend current furniture. It appropriate sizes for the size of the home. And it feels real. It feels like they're walking into a really beautiful home of their best friend. They should be able to imagine themselves living there, and it elevates not only the feeling of the home, but the price of the home. So, all of the things that we take into consideration are the fixed finishes and the architecture, and all of those things to make sure that we're marketing the home properly, basically. Okay. So we're going to look at some which would you like better pictures, and it's going to just illustrate the importance of presentation and aesthetics when people are looking at homes. So we can go through those kind of quickly. So this is a house that we staged just recently, and this is the photo when the owners bought the home, and then the next one is how we just ended up staging it a little bit ago. And then the next one is very, very similar. This is a home that we staged not too long ago, and this was how the sellers bought it, and then this is how we ended up staging it. And then the next one, same thing, and I think this one does a good job of illustrating what I call not great staging. There's probably an air mattress on the floor. The art's hung up by the top of the ceiling. The curtains are still there, and it doesn't give anybody a sense of, oh, this is a luxurious primary retreat, as opposed to the next photo, which is how we ended up with it. Okay. Functionality is a huge important thing that we worry about a lot when we're staging a home. Okay. And one of the things that when we're looking at functionality, we look at people that do what we call light staging or accessory only staging. And this is kind of an example of it, where they'll put a teapot in the kitchen and maybe a couple of bar stools. It doesn't address buyers' concerns about, can I fit in this 5-bedroom house a table for 6 or 8 people? Let's go on to the next one. Same thing. This is another example of, light staging. Okay, it's got a chair and a plant, and it doesn't do anything to show the buyers how they could live in the home or what they could actually fit in the home to make it usable. It doesn't make it, it's not marketable that way. And same thing here. The dining set's lovely, but if this is a 4 or 5-bedroom house, people need to see that there's enough room for everybody at the table. They need a table in there that's actually going to fit their family, and we need to show them how that it would fit. Okay. We can just go on. One of the things that I've talked about a little bit is how to use what we would call wasted space. This is a house that we staged out in Redmond, I think, and it was a really quirky house. This was the area under the stairs. To the left, it's in the basement, and then to the left are some bedrooms, but there was this whole area here that was just completely wasted space. And we really wanted to show people, look, you could put this beautiful reading nook down here. You could have, all of these different things that you could do with it. So some of the things that we do is we can set up like a homework area or a second office, since we've got so many people working from home, or a playroom. It's just important to utilize the space to show it as how it could be used and make it marketable. And then we have to talk really quickly about virtual staging, because I have a lot of people that ask about it all the time. And the thing about virtual staging is that it may look okay in the MLS photos, and these look okay, not great, but they're all right. Buyers get into the house and it doesn't do the job. It doesn't sell the house in any way, shape, or form. It still doesn't tell them how they can use the space. It feels empty, and they kind of feel like it's a bait and switch when they've seen some photos and they're like, oh yeah, okay, that looks kind of interesting, and they get there and it's just blank walls. Okay. We could talk. I could talk for hours about why I don't feel virtual staging works. I know some people like to use it. I just, as an agent who has taken buyers into a home that has been shown as virtually staged online, I've heard the comments about how disappointed they are when they get there. And then they're like, well, I don't think my sofa's going to fit. Could you put a king bed in here? So like I said, I just don't think it does the job. It may get them into the house, but it's not going to sell it. Here's a slide that talks about what's most important to the buyers. And this is an NAR 2023 profile of home staging study. The photos, 77% said that is the most important thing. And that's what we focus on, is what's going to be the shot? How are we going to make it amazing? Real physical staging, videos, virtual tours, and then down at the bottom, 18% thought that virtual staging was going to be helpful. We should also talk a little bit about how do we come up with a price to stage a house? And there's a lot of information that's on the next couple of slides that I don't want to go too deeply into. Basically, when I talk to folks and tell them that we take into account the size of the home, we take into account the access to the home. Is it in a condo building and we're going to have to wait for the elevator to go up and down with every load? Is it a $3 million home where it's going to require a totally different level of luxury than a $600,000 or $800,000 home? And the rooms are probably going to be a lot larger. So all of those things are taken into account when we provide a staging quote. Okay. This is the part that I think this is important for people to realize, but I don't like to go into it too deeply. We have stagers out there that are hobbyist stagers. Like I said, they've got their husband on the weekend and they're going to put some stuff in a house, and that's fine. A true professional stager is going to have overhead. They're going to have insurance. They're going to have L&I. They're going to have a truck. They're going to have employees. They're going to have expenditures for good inventory. So there's just a ton of things that go into it that help to determine what the cost is going to be. Okay. Is the investment in really good home staging worth it? That's the question. So every day I talk to people who say, well, I talked to Jody, my neighbor down the street, and she said she could do it for $1,500. And it's just a whole different thing. So let's keep going. This is just some stats from NAR. 81% of buyers agents said staged homes made it easier for buyers to visualize the house as their home. And we know that because buyers they linger in a staged home much longer than they do an empty house. Okay. 40% of buyers agents said their sellers were more willing to do an in-person viewing of a staged home as opposed to a vacant home. And 73% of the homes that were staged sold for over asking price. And these are not new.
That we could be using our listing presentations, Kathryn. I mean, these are updated. I mean, these stats are real. This is awesome. Yeah. I'm like taking notes right now.
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, let's keep going. This is interesting because this is, again, I belong to an association called the Real Estate Staging Association, RESA for short, and it's a professional staging organization nationwide. So keeping in mind that it's nationwide, staged homes sold for an average of $40,000 more than homes that were unstaged. Here in our area, our statistics are much higher. Our homes are much more expensive. This takes into account all different states and cities. So, okay. Again, I think it's important for agents to know that when they hire a home stager, they need to make sure that they've got liability insurance, that they use W-2 employees, that they're covered under workman's comp. Otherwise, that leaves your seller open. So some of these things are things that nobody would ever think about. Oh gosh, if that stager or their assistant got hurt while they were on my seller's property and they're not covered by L&I or workman's comp, your seller's on the hook for that. And have a valid business license, be a member in good standing with at least one trade organization. Same thing as with real estate agents, in that it's important to be professional. So, okay, next one. So I think this kind of says it all. You wouldn't want others referring home sellers to the cheapest listing agent, the agent with the lowest commission. You'd want people referring sellers to the agent they thought would get them the best results. And it's the same thing with home stagers. Okay. Again, house painters, plumbers, carpenters, you don't refer your home sellers to the ones that you know are going to be the cheapest. You know that you're going to refer them to the ones that are going to get the job done well. Same thing. Great staging isn't cheap. Cheap staging isn't great. And what I like to tell people when I speak with them on the phone, folks that I've never talked to before, agents, sellers, whoever, I always let them know, look, we are not the cheapest staging company out there. There's a ton of them. We are definitely not the most expensive staging company out there. There's quite a few of those. We're usually somewhere in the middle, and we provide a great value for the price that we charge. Whether you use us, whether you don't use us, this is all really helpful information for you guys to have so that you can evaluate the person or the company that you're referring your sellers to, whether it's us, whether it's someone else, whether it's one of my friends that you know, I know most of the stagers in the area. Make sure that you look at their portfolio so that you can show your seller, this is what your house could look like. Check all of these things. Do you guys have liability insurance? Do you have a business license? Do you use movers that you picked up, you know, down the street, or, you know, are these guys covered? Our stats for my company, First Impressions, right now we're at 5.5 days on market, and our average is $66,000 over asking. And these are just some before and afters. Sometimes I have people that say, oh gosh, well, you know, this is the house, oh, gosh, it needs a lot of work. I don't know if we should bother to stage it. So please take a look at these before and afters, because this house was one of those. This is what it would have looked like in the MLS photos if we hadn't staged it. Nothing else was done to this house. They didn't do anything. They didn't even clean the carpet. They didn't paint the walls. And this is the after. Okay, same thing, same house. Just a massive difference. And then these are just some other photos of houses that we've staged recently. And just to be clear, you know, we've got all of these big, beautiful house photos. We don't just stage big, beautiful houses. So
You have a team of people then from all of these that have to come in, because that's a lot of moving. I'm assuming you're not doing all the moving of all that furniture.
That I used to back in the beginning. No,
Yeah.
I actually contract with an amazing moving company that is just phenomenal. And then I've got a team of 4 other people that work with me. So yeah, that is us, but I'm happy to answer questions for anyone.
Yeah, we definitely had some, and as you would expect, there looks like chat, a lot of questions about costs and things like that. So I know we're gonna have to probably go through these a little bit quickly here. So as far as like how you take payment, I mean, I know every staging company works a little bit differently,
Sure.
but you would work, I mean, you would have to get access to the property, come see what the project's gonna look like, right? And then you would bid the job.
That's true.
Explain how that works.
Absolutely. So what the process looks like, if I get a brand new call, someone I've never worked with before, we talk a little bit. I ask them a lot of questions about the property, answer any that they have. And typically with that information and possibly being able to access the old MLS photos, I'm able to give them a ballpark price, a range. And I like to do that because I want to make sure that we're on the same page. If someone hasn't staged before, I don't want to go out and they think it's going to be $1,500 and it's $3,500. We've just wasted their time, my time. So I want to, you know, make sure that we're all on the same page first. So I give a range of pricing. And if that sounds good to them, then I make an appointment to come out and do a walkthrough of the house. I provide a written proposal within 24 hours. And once they accept that proposal, we'll send out a contracted invoice. We do require payment up front in order to get on our calendar. Typically, Gosh, in the middle of January, we could have staged for you in a couple of days. Right now, it's going to be at least a couple of weeks or longer. So it's always
Okay.
good to plan in advance, but that's kind of our process.
Okay. So would stagers take you don't get paid, in the contract, can the seller pay you directly? Can we set it up that way? Or is that something that you typically
Yes.
just work with the real estate agent?
No,
Okay.
it totally depends on, first, whether the seller's paying for it or whether the agent is paying for it. Like I said, we have some of both. There isn't a right way or a wrong way to go about that. That's between you and the seller, but we'll take payment either from the agent or the seller, whichever.
Okay. And then to kind of talk about staging, I know you don't get paid at escrow, you get paid up front, but do other stagers get paid out of escrow, or is that not a common thing?
It's very uncommon. And the reason for that, I don't know if I know of any in our area that do. The only reason I know that it happens is because in the various forums that I belong to, people talk about it ever so often. And the reason that that most of us don't, is that that's really risky for us. We've got all expense already out there up front. All of my costs are the first day that staging goes into your house. And if the seller pulls it off the market, if the sale falls through and they get disillusioned, if something else happens, we don't get paid unless we go after them. And I don't want to be chasing money like that.
Yeah, makes sense. What happens if the home doesn't sell? Somebody's asked a question about that. So let's say we have a contract, and I know, we like to price to sell. When you get to this type of listing where it's staged, you want to pricing is really important, to make sure you're on target price.
Right.
That, escalate up. But let's just say it goes 30 days, then we don't get an offer, we have to do a price reduction. Do we just have to extend our staging contract, or how does that work if it doesn't sell?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is totally up to either the seller or agent, whoever's paying. And it really depends on budget. I encourage strongly people to keep staging in until they've received their offer and until your contingencies are satisfied. But again, totally up to you. Our initial contract is for 30 days. And if you choose to extend it, or if you need to extend it, which we're not seeing at all right this minute, but in the future, the monthly cost to renew the staging is about a third of the initial cost. So it's much less expensive. You're basically paying for the inventory rental at that point.
Okay. So you really, it's encouraging the agents to price right from the get-go to make sure that you're on. Yeah. Because you don't want to have to staging and have to pull the staging in the midstream. It definitely doesn't serve the client right, I think, at that point.
I totally agree. And I would just make a note about that. Like I said, I do have some agents that pay for the staging.
Okay.
I have some concerns about that because the seller have any skin in the game at that point. So what I've encouraged the agents who do pay for staging initially to do with their sellers is at least make the sellers responsible for any renewal fees, so that if they didn't get the price right and in 30 days they need to look at it again, the seller's perhaps a little bit more willing to say, oh, well, maybe I should look at this price reduction because I'm going to have to keep paying for the staging.
Yeah, that's the way I run it. And I think that's very smart. So, you can make that using a Form 18 amendment or an addendum to the listing agreement. Our listing agreement allows for us to collect. So I have no qualms about, in fact, I've had to fight 2 or 3 people, cancellations during the pandemic, Kathryn, where we paid for staging, or Best Choice Realty paid for staging, and then the sellers canceled the listing on us. And we went after them and we're collecting. We were successful in collecting the amount so that we paid. So I know our contract, but then it just, if you're going to want to build in that extension, you may need my language to help you with the amendment, because it definitely affects how you're perceived as a professional. And the reality is these do sell quickly if you price them right and you have them staged. So it's few and far.
Yeah.
A lot of people would like a copy of the presentation. Is that okay to send out to Best Choice Realty agents, Kathryn?
I don't know why not. Sure.
Okay, and then I guess these are pictures, as you're going through it, I was like, oh, yep, I know Kathryn staged that one. I know Kathryn staged that one. These are all pictures that you have taken,
Yeah.
right? These are actually.
Yes, that is.
Another question.
One quick question that we had is, is it only vacant homes that are staged, or are they owner occupied? How does that work, Kathryn?
That is a really good question, especially now. We do offer occupied staging under certain circumstances. The circumstances would need to be that no small children and no pets in the home if we're bringing in soft goods. We can also offer occupied staging where we're using most of their items and we're just bringing in art and accessories. Sometimes that makes a huge difference. So it really depends on the situation. We do offer it. It depends. So I should clarify, it depends on the situation and it depends on the seller. So yes, it's a possibility.
Okay. Kathryn, so when you do a consult, is it just charged by the hour? Is that something like, say they have, their grandma or their mom that wants to stage, or like, they're living in the house, they're probably going to go on the market. I know you've done this before for me in the past in Monroe, comes to mind.
Oh,
where
yeah.
you went out and consulted with the client. Do you just
Right.
bill that? Can you explain a little bit more about how that would work? If somebody's trying to I'm not really ready to go to staging, but I definitely know I'm not the professional, and they're willing to let go of that part of the process. Could you explain that process of just having a professional come in and give a staging quote?
You bet. And there's a couple of different options in terms of a consultation. So what I call a consultation is when I'm at the home usually it's around 2 hours. It can be as little as one if it's a small home, but usually between 1 and 2 hours. And we're talking about what they can do to improve the marketability of their home, whether that's exterior, whether that's interior, whether it's just moving furniture around, whether it's repacking. So that's what I consider a consultation. And I do charge for that. Oftentimes the agent pays for it, but I have sellers that pay for it too. The cost is between $350 and $400. And the seller walks away with I ask them to take notes because I have found over the years that if the seller takes the notes, we get a hugely higher level of engagement and compliance with the suggestions, as opposed to me sending them my notes afterwards. And they're kind of like, oh, yeah, what's that? So that is a consultation. For me to come out and look at the home and just talk about, yes, we can stage it and this is the cost and, that sort of thing. There's no charge for that. I call that a walkthrough. Yeah, there's no charge for that.
But if somebody's like, do I paint the wall, or what color should I do? Or do you think I should remove this bookcase or that? I mean, that's kind of what I think my Monroe client was doing to you. That would be, that hourly rate is what you're talking about there.
Exactly. And it's actually it's not really even an hourly rate. It's one flat fee. And unless it's a 6,000 square foot house and, we go into 3 or 4 hours, but typically it's between 1 and 2 hours and it's just that flat fee. But yes, we talk about, everything. Like I said, we talk about landscaping. We talk about what kind of bark to use, whether their soffits need to be painted, whether the roof needs to be cleaned. And then we go inside and we talk about flooring choices and carpet choices and lighting fixtures and, whatever they need. I will make those suggestions and I will give them reasons as to why it would be beneficial for them to do that. If none of that is in the cards for them, if the budget's just not there, then we just simply talk about, okay, let's pre-pack these things. Let's move this here. Let's make the photos more marketable and do the best we can with what you've got.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I can attest to Kathryn's abilities. I mean, I certainly took classes. I'm one of those hobbyists, right? You would consider a hobbyist stager, but there's certain projects or certain clients you work with, and I can attest to Kathryn's ability to just dive right in. And if you know that her costs and her fee, it's very easy to intersect her, and she's not going to take your listing. She's just basically just
Oh.
going to try to help you getting the best choice realty listing that's going to be a wow factor. We want our listings to look fantastic. And for the most part, our listings do look pretty fantastic, but there are times where I was like, I wish that they would have just consulted with somebody before they put it on the market, or
Yeah.
talk with you, or talk with somebody that had some sort of knowledge about just basics before they get the.
I agree with that 100%. Obviously, that's why I do what I do, because I found what a huge difference it makes. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that, yes, we are here for the seller. Our job is to help them get their home sold and give them the biggest return on investment. But the byproduct of that for the agent is it's their brand. I have agents that I've worked for years whose sellers say, I want our house to look like these other houses that you sold. And
Yeah.
It's their brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another question came in, and I think we got to wrap for the night, but cancellations, how are cancellations handled? To be precise, what is the cancellation policy? I guess she's specifically asking about first impressions.
Absolutely. And this is terrible, but I'm going to have to look at my contract verbiage. What I will tell you is that there is a point at which, when we get, I think within 48 hours of the actual staging, where there is 100% cancellation fee. Prior to that, with proper notice, because by then we've already packed and planned and turned down other business for that day. So I think that's 48 hours. I'd need to double check. Prior to that, given proper notice, and I apologize because I'll need to see what that says, 100% refundable cancellation, no problem with that.
Perfect. And then
down to
service King, Pierce, Snohomish, Kitsap?
Or Kitsap sometimes, Pierce, yes, definitely. King, yes, definitely. And some parts of Snohomish as well.
Okay, so Puget Sound region is what you can kind of say. That would be
exactly
perfect.
And the truth is, if it's not in my area, I can refer you to someone that can take great care of you.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds like you are the type of stager that we've worked well with. So I appreciate your time, Kathryn. Shannon, anything else that
No, I just wanted to thank Kathryn too. So I know I can speak for all of the agents that are here on the call and the ones that will hear the recording later, but thank you, Kathryn. And I'll attest to it too. Clearly some of my pictures made the cut. So I know that it works. I have clients that are very, very pleased, and gosh, if you can make the time frame crunch, it is well worth it to do the staging. Obviously we have those properties that's like they have to go on the market right away, and it's like, gosh, I think I've even reached out to you a couple times, Kathryn. I'm like, can you swing it? And you're like, no, not within that one. That's too quick, but if you've got the time to do it, you've got a seller that's saying, hey, we're like a month and a half out, or can we go in the spring, or can we go in the summer? I mean, why not? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And anyone some verbiage so that they can help their sellers understand why this is in their best interest, please feel free to reach out to me.
Perfect. Well, I think just a few slides you shared today are exactly what I was looking for. So
yeah,
thank you for
the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks you guys, and thank you, Kathryn. And her information's here on the screen here, so it's info@firstimpressionsnw.com. So if you need to get a hold of her, that's where you can get a hold of her. So thanks so much. We're gonna have a great week for training. We've got a listing class tomorrow. So for those that are trying to prep some listings, hey, I mean, now we've talked about staging, we've got a listing training tomorrow. And if not, we'll touch base this next Monday. We do have another excellent guest speaker this next Monday too, so stay tuned for that. I think it's a specialist too, so hopefully we can catch you guys then. Have a great week. It's busy, so let's get out there and put some deals together. There's a lot to be had right now. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.